Speed isn't just seen, it's felt. And today's guest has built a career capturing that feeling in a way that blurs the line between reality and art. From endurance racing to jets in the wild, his work transforms motion into emotion. This is not just photography, this is storytelling at its full velocity. This is Camden Thrasher. All right, Camden,
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you.
It's been like a few years kind of chasing you around,
Yeah,
trying to find you in the wild, but we found you. Actually, you found me, and now we're here. All right. So originally you studied automotive engineering,
yeah, more or less.
and I guess you were more toward inclined towards capturing cars than airplanes. How did you get into photography?
Um, Pretty randomly, actually, just messing around with my dad's camera that he had at home. I just used it around the house, take the pictures of stuff outside in the yard, whatever else was available that a 13-year-old kid or whatever it was could take pictures of. Just because an old mechanical camera was like a cool thing to me at the time. No, like I don't think I had an interest in photography at that point or knew that that's what I would eventually want to do. Just cool thing to play around with.
So what was your first set of images?
I don't know, just the yard, the
Yeah,
sprinkler in the yard or
I think
whatever.
mine was like the squirrels climbing
Yeah,
up the tree or
something like that. I mean,
yeah.
eventually when I would start going to the racetracks with my dad, I would bring the camera there. I do have some early photos from Air Force Base with I think it was like Thunderbirds, some air show there when I was pretty young. But yeah, the first thing I did with photography was motorsports, and that's originally what I wanted to do was to be like a racing engineer or a racing mechanic. That's what I kind of went to college for. Kept going to the racetrack, but as a fan, and would bring a camera. So naturally, that led into that aspect of photography that I just kept doing and never stopped.
When you were going to the races, what drew you to like image wise, more the cars or the atmosphere?
Initially, at first, the cars because that's I mean, as a kid, you don't have a whole lot of access to stuff, so the cars were what it was at first, and as I started meeting people and being able to capture, like, what they were actually doing or telling their story, that's kinda what I've ventured towards is how to how to capture, like, human emotion or what people are doing, whether it's with airplanes or motorsports or anything really, but, yeah, at first, it was definitely just the cars.
Yeah. So walk me through your story process when you're capturing the racers.
It varies, but really, like, it's easy to show a car on a racetrack, but that really doesn't tell you what's going on. It doesn't describe, like, the effort that the crew are putting into preparing these cars or if something's damaged, like, the effort that goes into repairing them in a very, tight timeline. It doesn't tell you, like, the focus that these drivers have. That's what I hope to capture and show someone that, like, might not care about cars or even airplanes or might not have any interest in this subject, but there's something in my image that someone can recognize, whether that's an emotion or an interesting shape or color or something like that, that if they don't know why a 24-hour race is interesting because they've never seen it before, but they can recognize, like, someone has grease all over their face and they're hard at work fixing something, like,
Yeah.
that's something that can be recognized and maybe it's interesting to someone.
Your images feel kind of abstract at times. When do you realize that motion blur can be your signature rather than a limitation?
That's a good question. It was something that I had seen, um, from some other, like, photographers that I had a few books, some older, guys that shot F1 in the '60s and '70s, and it was something I had never seen from images from that time period, but it was also I realized that that is an interesting way to show, like, kind of the speed and the dynamicness of what's going on um in racing, in aviation. And it's at that point it's less a photo of an airplane, but it's a photo of like maybe what it felt like to watch these things come by you so close, so fast.
A lot of photographers kind of chase the sharpness, and we see that here in air shows. People are capturing helicopters with like a stuck rotor.
Mhm.
There's no motion blur whatsoever. Is it something that develops naturally to kind of slow down the shutter, or is it like a rebellion type of thing?
Mm, it could be a bit of both. I mean, in the helicopter example, like there's I think there's a lot of people that will like give you all these rules like you need to have some motion in the rotors
Yeah,
or even with cars like the wheels need to have some motion in it. You can't have like a frozen thing. And I don't fully agree with that. Um I wouldn't say that it needs to be like 100% either way. Yes, slowing down the shutter speed and showing some motion in the rotor or propeller or the wheels of a car can give you an indication of that it's moving, what's happening. It can also be detrimental to something else you might want to achieve in the photograph. And so I see people also commenting on something where I would assume someone has purposely chose to shoot at a really high shutter speed to show something else going on. And naturally that's gonna like freeze the rotor blade.
yeah,
And people get stuck on the fact that, oh, the propeller isn't moving, this is bad. Then I
yeah. I
don't
mean, it
I don't
depends.
understand that. Like I think the overall goal needs to be like, what are you trying to say or what are you trying to show in this image? And what your shutter speed settings or motion blur might be will be driven by that. Not necessarily you need to have a full prop blur in every scenario.
Yeah, yeah. I think it does. It depend on the story side.
The opposite to that is I don't need to shoot crazy slow all the time and just have the most silly blurry images because like that's equally like not effective in really showing anything in all cases. So, but yeah, I think you said rebellion. I think sometimes it's interesting to kind of do the opposite of what what someone has told you to do, or what just like, hey, I can do this maybe, or what happens if I do.
Yeah, I think what was it last year at Miami Air Show? I had friends that were in the helicopter in a MH-60 chasing another one
Mhm.
like pre-show. And I'm like, "Hey, did you guys get like?" He's like, "No, it's just too windy. I couldn't."
Yeah,
And I'm like, "Okay, I can understand that." And then I went to Rome and I was in a Huey and I was trying to capture just like the rotor kind of like out the door, wide
sure.
angle with that some blur. I'm like, okay, this is probably gonna be bad, but I'm gonna risk it. So it's like for me, it's I want to get as much sometimes almost and I don't have the greatest gear. My thing is like F4, right? So F4 and F60. I try to push it and it's more of a risk reward
Mhm.
thing. And
Yeah,
most of the time it's high risk and really low reward
sure.
trying to capture it. But yeah, rebellion side, I think that's more trying to push the boundaries of their gear.
No, it is a risk reward thing, especially like helicopters are tricky if you want to do the gotta get a full like
Yes.
rotor disc thing. It can look cool sometimes, but also sometimes I think that rotor blade might disappear in the background, and then it's like you've lost like a big part of this aircraft, and maybe speeding the shutter up a little bit, so you're still like there is an indication that there's a rotor blade here might look a little nicer.
Yeah, and it also depends how many passes you get. If you have
Yeah,
one pass, you're pretty much don't toast it. Try to keep it. So, what's harder to capture, motion or speed?
I think emotion might be harder to find. Um, speed is like can be repetitive or could be everywhere. I think it depends where I am or what's going on.
Mhm.
It's hard to capture an emotion of a car by itself or an airplane, but I think not necessarily emotion, but like, for some of these jet, demo teams, if you can capture the plane, like, in the middle of their main radius turn where it's, like, the maximum G and you see the wings, like, flexing,
Yeah.
I think that's an indication of what's going on, and it's an inanimate object, so maybe emotion is the wrong term, but in that sense, like, it I would put it in that same category, um, of, yes, this might just be a tightly cropped photo of a plane, but you can see the wings are bent, so there's an indication of, like, something kinda serious
Yeah.
is going on here. Same with a photo of a person, like, putting their helmet on. It could just be a photo of them staring at a camera, or they're, like, intently looking at something, and that is, I think, the difference of what I would try to find moments like that
When they're in the
in
zone.
yeah, inherently have some indication of what's going on or what they're thinking about or what this airplane is doing. I think it can be difficult to find or convey that. Um, I think showing or illustrating speed is maybe technically more difficult, but there's more opportunities, I think, to see and attempt to capture that.
How much of your success comes from anticipating moments versus reacting to?
Ooh, good question. I think there's a decent amount that I've as the more I'm around this, the more I can try to anticipate stuff or plan for, hey, this would be neat if this happens. I'm gonna set myself up with the idea that if it does, I'll be ready to. I'd say most of the time that probably doesn't work. But the times when it does, I think that's obviously then I feel like this has been a success. That's not something I can count on all the time just because, I mean, yes, these air show routines are in theory the same over and over again. Racing, they're going around in the same track every time, but it's slightly different every time. So it is very, like, you do need to be reactive or able to observe what's going on and make reactions or, like, very small prediction in, like, a very narrow time frame of, I guess I try to be prepared for a number of different scenarios that might play out at any one time and execution of that, but
I think we all we all fumble sometimes. What's your unpredictable variable that you encounter at events
I
sometimes?
think with aviation or, like, specifically in air show, the in racing, I'm more or less, this is gonna sound silly, but I'm kinda pointed in one's, like, small direction at any one time that I'm doing a certain shot, but for an air show routine, you could point 180 degrees within, like, 3 seconds or something, and the lighting can change dramatically in those 3 seconds, so I shoot the manual a lot, especially with, motorsport stuff. With aviation, all because of that and because, like, exposures could change dramatically in a small time frame, and trying to rip 2 or
Yeah.
3 dials generally results in a failure to do one of those correctly. I do shoot, like, aperture priority or shutter priority more, with aviation, but I think that can be a challenge when you realize that something is changing drastically and you're not really ahead of the curve on adjusting for that. And that's something that is one of those things that I should have probably, like, thought of, okay, if they go this way, what do I need to do? If they go that way, what do I need to
What does a failed shot look like for you,
in that scenario or just in general?
just in general?
There's often a lot of stuff with airplanes where, especially when they're close and fast moving, that at the time frame seemed like I've tracked them well. And when I look at it later, it's just super wacky, poorly framed. And I think a lot of people, like, there's got to be the whole plane in the photo or something, and I know I said, but if it's not purposeful as to why it's part of the plane or what part it is, then it just looks like, okay, you didn't really messed up And
Yeah.
I think like that can be used purposefully on there's something interesting going on in the cockpit here. Let's specifically show that. I don't need to see the tail or the wings or whatever. There's other times when it's just like, okay, why is it just a tail? This is weird.
Well, you want to see the mock diamonds,
Sure. But if there's none of that,
Yeah.
then
Unless it's part of your story when you're gonna post it to social and you're like, okay, here's the tail, but here's everything else. Not like people are doing these like, and I do it
yeah.
too, the multi-panel things, but
I just think there's a way where that works because it's purposeful, and there's a way where I just haven't done my job like a good job at like the technical part of photography. And that can be evident sometimes.
man, I thought, and I was thinking because I've followed your work for so long, and everything is just like it blows me out of the water, right? Like blows my mind every time I see it, and I'm thinking for you, a failed photo is just a jet in the sky with sky around it,
I
and
mean,
not really,
you're not wrong. I certainly take a number of those just because they're there, or
yeah,
sometimes it's nice to have a photo of I can show someone like, "Hey, I saw this plane today," or whatever, or other people might want that.
yeah, got that,
Um, I don't I'm probably not gonna share those with the world, like, just if it is something that is legitimately saying, "Hey, here's an airplane in the boring sky," like, I don't feel the need to share that.
yeah,
Um, I'm not
yeah. I mean, that's not your style,
it's not what I'm interested in.
yeah.
If it's what someone else is interested in, that's I don't know if I call that really a fail, just because it probably wasn't something that I intended to do, and it didn't work.
So you've leaned into capturing people and atmosphere more over time. Why is that important than just capturing the aircraft or the car?
I think there's more of a story that can be told with that.
Yeah, I
It
mean, we kind of answered it.
Yeah, it can be more approachable to other people who might not have an interest in an F-18 or might, like, see a military plane and just inherently
Yeah.
not be interested in it. That's yeah, I guess that's one of the reasons. I think it's just potentially more meaningful is a cool detail on the skin of a raptor or
I
whatever.
mean, the Raptor that they're flying is definitely different,
Yeah.
different panel paint, or and it's actually pretty cool. I mean, I know more people want painted aircraft. I really want painted aircraft, but I want the more like camouflage type of instead of, I see Oregon, I think it's Oregon. I'm not sure what the squadron is, but they have that painted flag on their
Yeah.
F-15. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But I want to see like in Navy Key West, you get all these
Yeah.
dressers.
uh
I want to see that on a
Yeah.
Raptor. Yeah, that'd be sweet. Make it look like one of those Sukhois and just
Yeah.
hop up behind them. So walk me through your mindset when you're looking through your shutter, like what are you looking for besides, making sure your settings are right and in framing? Do you have something like you always need something in the foreground, or does the
Um,
background need to be, like have the bokeh on there?
okay. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Ideally, you have something that, has a clear foreground, like a middle and a background, whether the subject is any one of those or perhaps all. That can be the goal. That's I think that can be difficult to achieve with a lot of the aviation stuff I do. Like some of what I shoot with jets flying around out in the mountains in the desert, I I look back at it and I see like this is all background pretty much, or all foreground or all middle ground or whatever. Just everything is in one plane. And I think to myself every time, like I should try and find something that like gives an idea of like where I am or whatever. But it can be difficult because of the distances and lens choice that I use for that, that everything is just far away and I need to use an extreme long telephoto lens, and that rules out like having any plants in the foreground or any other people or whatever else. So yes, that is something I think about, but it can be often just hard to achieve or not like not applicable. If if there's something flying around in the sky and the sky is just solid blue or overcast, like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna struggle
to figure out what the story is.
yeah, what I mean, at that point, I might say, "Okay, well, I'm gonna ditch the 500 mil lens and put a 24 millimeter on and see, can I include, like, people pointing up at the jet, or are they on their phone taking a picture? Or are they on their phone, like, checking TikTok and not impressed by what's going on?" Like, those are 2 different stories there.
Yeah.
Uh,
So let's talk into gear a little bit. What's your primary camera?
right now, the Nikon Z9 is what I use for most things. I have the D5s still that I keep. I use those for scenarios that when I need something to be a little more rugged, or a lot of the, like, extremely low light stuff I'll shoot. Those, in my opinion, operate, like, a lot better. Um, for what reason, I don't know, but
It's old school. I mean, I'm shooting on a Nikon
yeah,
D500 now, so
thick. But yeah, I still have the D5s. I still have all the lens. In fact, most of my lenses are still the F mount Nikon lenses. So I purposefully have kept the DSLRs around just because I still think for what I do, they still fulfill a chunk of what I do that's important enough, and they work well enough that, and honestly, I could put the, like, mirrorless stuff away and be totally fine with my,
yeah.
a lot of the newer fancy automatic face detection modes and stuff, I feel like are useful, are very useful in some scenarios, and get extremely confused just as much in others, that I'd mostly turn them all off. Um,
Yeah, I think, a lot of that kind of blocks the creativity also, because it will try to focus on something that you don't wanna really.
yes, it can help, but it can also be a detriment if I let it completely try and choose
Yeah.
what I wanna do, because either I'm fumbling to change something because 'cause I'm doing it manually, or I'm fumbling trying to correct the camera making decisions that I don't want it to make, and I'd rather have that control, or have the success or the failure be, like, my fault, instead of something just not doing what I.
With, so many photographers in the space of, automotive, aircraft, aviation, how do you stay creativity well, how do you stay original and apart from these guys? I mean, we know, we see your work,
That's a
but
good question, and that's actually what I use a lot of my aviation work for. Originally, like, I've been an aviation fan, like, airplane nerd for forever, since I was a little kid. Originally, like, and I've been going to air shows for as long as I can. First, when I was, like, kinda starting out with the motorsports photography, like, that's all the work I would put into, like, photographing and bringing my camera to a racetrack, and I would go to air shows just as a fan, and probably, like, 10 years ago at this point, I would, and I wouldn't bring a camera because it was like, "Okay, I just wanna go and see some airplanes." But I started bringing my cell phone to the air shows and shooting the air shows just on a cell phone, as a exercise in, like, composition, or how can I capture this big event with things far away, up in the air, on essentially a 24 mil lens and a crappy sensor and a slow camera. And I think that let let me still keep the, like, creative part of my brain active and, experimenting, exploring new things, working out how to compose things in a way that is not just a blank photo of a sky and a tiny little airplane. Like, what else do I need to put in this image to make it worthwhile, that someone would want to look at? And I think the limitations of using a cell phone, an iPhone 5 or whatever it was, is very helpful in trying to figure out, like, ways to do that. Um, but even now, once I realize, like, I could bring an actual camera to these shows and probably do much better work. Um, Still taking those lessons I learned, or stuff I experimented with the phone, with a camera that makes nice, like technically nicer images or different lens choices. Still taking those lessons and putting it into like real photography. But when I come to these air shows,
Weird Nikon, weird stuff. Sorry, you're saying.
yeah, so I still, when I come to air show stuff now, and obviously have my like actual camera equipment, still thinking about how I approached it just with a cell phone and working like composite interesting competitions and stuff. I I take most of my aviation work not as a job because it's mostly not, but it is then completely only on my own terms. I can sit around for 8 hours and attempt one photo and have nobody telling me like, "Hey, you need to go do this." I mean, like, we need specific deliverables on this day or whatever. And I think that lets me still keep my creativity going to whatever degree I want it to be. Yeah, like I can come here and do as much or as little as I want in a way that I make sure it keeps it fun, it keeps it interesting, and if I'm not having a good time, I don't need to force myself to do anything, and that's where I think I can keep my photography brain interested in continuing with this if I can devote time like 100% to doing crazy ideas or doing nothing if I don't want to.
And looking ahead at your next 10, 15, 20 years, your evolution of work, what are you chasing and what haven't you captured yet?
I don't know if there's any like specific things that I haven't yet, but it's always like I can always do better at what I've done before. There's something I missed, something I made a mistake on.
Is there a bucket list aircraft that you haven't captured?
Mm.
Maybe see the microwave in the B2 or something?
I don't approach it as if I need to like specifically see a certain aircraft. I'm a big F-15 fan, so the more I can see of those is
Oh,
like in any circumstances is always cool. I've been more and more interested in helicopters recently. Just they can be tricky to shoot, but what they can what they can do offers like a big they give you a lot of ingredients that you can
yeah.
make something with. I think doing more like them I would love to see more of or shoot more of the Marines, the CH-53, the big ass helicopter they have. Like
Before
a
they're all gone?
as a mechanical object, that thing is really neat. It's impressive to see those doing stuff and seeing them up close on the ground, and you wonder, like, how does it even fly? It just looks like a school bus with a big propeller on the top.
It's
Um,
massive.
it's always cool to see the Navy, the aggressor F-16s they have. Just I've not seen anyone fly quite like those besides like the Viper demo team is, I'd say, equivalent on a slick F-16, just showing how agile that thing is.
Yeah, FEMA is definitely ripping that thing.
I guess I would like to see a tornado at some point.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably not gonna happen in the US, but
No. Have you gone over to, like, the UK and catch
the UK, no.
races or
I I've been doing less international travel for my motorsport work as of recently, just kind of the way things are working out. But I did go to Japan 2019 for what was meant to be one of the last air shows with the F4s, the RF4s that they had. That was a neat experience. Just very much a different vibe over
yeah.
there. Did the Swiss air show that's up in the mountains. That was
Yeah, you
crazy.
did that the last almost like
The last year that it happened, whether it'll happen again, I don't know. So I'm glad I decided to do that. Um, I realized that the flights were pretty cheap and just said, um, I've been thinking about doing that for a while. It often conflicted with one of the last races of the year for me that I really had no way of, like, missing. When I realized, I think it's 2019 or whatever it was, I realized that it had no confliction. Flights to Zurich were reasonable. I just hit buy on that immediately and just figured out the rest after that. But
Holy cow.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's like a once in a lifetime trip. You go
yeah,
out there, you climb a mountain, capture just amazing. I mean, it's
it,
a live fire exercise.
yeah. I mean, it might end up being once in a lifetime if
Yeah,
the way things seem to be going
yeah.
for them. I hope not. Yeah, I'd like to do something in the UK or
What's what's one piece of advice you would give someone that's been capturing for either a few years or like a new someone that's new to photography that feels kind of stuck in this like process? What's something you'd tell them?
I would say I would try to identify like what makes this interesting to them. What brings them here to an air show, to a airbase, to an airport? How can you show that to someone else instead of just clicking away and maybe not thinking about why what they're capturing or what they're showing? If whatever that may be, there's no wrong answer to that. I think the wrong answer is maybe not thinking about it. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, even then, if just the act of taking fake pictures is interesting to someone and the output really isn't a concern of theirs,
yeah,
there's no problem with that.
I get it. I understand it. My
You could also just say like limit yourself, like shoot at 200 mil, or
yeah,
say you shoot this whole day at f8.
yeah, just
What can
change
I
it
do
up.
with f8? What can I do with 2.8 or whatever?
Yeah, do the opposite what you were doing.
Yeah, and see, like, often in those situations where you're limited, that activates your brain on like, okay, how do I get myself out of this, or how do I get around it to make something interesting? I had someone say to me one time that like like when I backed into a corner is where I like do my
Do
do
your
my
best.
job, and I think that was a correct identification. That's not always the situations I want to be in.
Yeah,
Like, it's nicer when you have a plan or when you have some idea of what's going on. But I think that that was a decent observation of how I often work. But I think if you kind of like sometimes you just have too much choice or something's like way too easy.
gotcha.
That's one reason why, or like that is part of one of the reasons why I'll shoot on prime lenses a lot, is because it forces me to make decisions and movements on framing, on composition, on lens choice, rather than I can stand in one position and just zoom in and out and
Play around with that.
yeah. That's not to say that that's a wrong answer,
No, I
um,
mean, I don't think there is a wrong answer.
but just like what happens if you go in the static aircraft area and put your zoom lens at 600 mil? Like, what can you do with that? Maybe nothing, but maybe something real interesting where you back a mile away and you shoot over the top of a bunch of stacked planes and you have a bunch of people like touching it.
Different perspectives. Show that emotion of what you're at.
Yeah,
Airship.
maybe for someone that's stuck, maybe that doesn't end up with anything like specifically from that exercise that works, but maybe you get some thinking about
Yeah.
something else they can do, or like, okay, if I'd done that again, I would have done this.
So, in closing here, where can people find your work at?
For the most part, on Instagram, just my name at Camden Thrasher. That's where most of it goes right now. My website is a little
In progress.
unattended at this moment. Um,
Uh, there is a kind of joke out there. You're being Thrasher. You're always thrashing your cameras around.
yeah, I think I find myself in scenarios that are a little rough on stuff, and I've I'm not gonna let like trying to be a princess about my equipment. Like, I'm gonna do what I need in a scenario to make the images that I want, and if that means I need to set my stuff down quickly on a bunch of rocks and, like, it falls off, like, oops, maybe that was dumb, but also that's maybe what I needed to do in the time. I've also made some really stupid decisions and just broken stuff, which is not something to, like, be happy or proud about,
Outline.
but
Yeah.
it is something that my stuff if you look at any of my equipment, even my new stuff, it's pretty worn and beat up looking, and it's just kind of a joke. I just to, like, kinda stay humble about myself and, like,
Yeah.
I try to be I don't I don't need to take any one aspect of this too seriously, like, if
I try not to take it seriously, but at the same time, I feel like, what am how am I at like 42 episodes talking to people? I hate being in front of the camera. I'm behind the camera,
yeah.
but every other Tuesday, I'm like in front of the camera, and I'm like, okay, please. I have friends like, dude, how many times did you scratch your head on that one, or how many times did you, like
I'm never
twitch
in
your
front of a
mustache?
camera, so
Yeah, so it's it's fun.
yeah, I like to joke about or I like to take a joke about myself or like to just realize some stupid stuff I've done and
Captured, as much as we can
yeah, glad we
before the
finally,
before we got it. Yeah, I'm glad we finally sat down
yeah.
and it'd be fun. It'll be a good episode. But